Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP. Nick is here in attendance with me once more because today we are going to be going through our NXT recap from last night's edition of NXT. This was the Tuesday, 7th of October edition, and this is a very special NXT because this is NXT and TNA presenting NXT Showdown. So, yeah, lots of cross-brand shenanigans going on here. Lots to discuss. It was a busy night, and it was all about brand supremacy. So let's see which brand came out on top, which brand won their matches, and it's generally what happened throughout the course of the night. So, kicking things off, we would have the Tag Team Championship winner-takes-all contest between the TNA World Tag Team Champions, the Hardy Boys, and the NXT Tag Team Champions, Dark State. So, as I mentioned, both tag team champions going into this one, and only one team will come out, and they will have both sets of tag team gold once all is said and done. This is a pretty fun matchup. Not gonna lie, it was very entertaining to kick things off. Hardy Boys getting a great reception. The crowd just popping for them really nicely. It gets a little bit chaotic at the very start because Dark State do get two members of their group removed from the situation, ejected from ringside. So we're only left with the official tag team champions left for Dark State. So it's just a 2-on-2. No shenanigans, no nothing going on. Nice and simple. And that's how the match basically just plays out for the entirety. It's very competitive contest. Both teams, are able to sort of like have their own sort of like say throughout the match flow. Gets to a point in the end where Dark State are looking for sort of like a Doomsday Device style move. And they don't actually end up hitting it in the end because there's sort of like, I don't know if it's like a deliberate thing, but the Hardys sort of like try and like fight their way down. It's Matt Hardy specifically here. Tries to like fight his way down, and Dark State sort of like crumbles down, and a little bit of a weird interaction in the corner, but the Hardys take full control. Matt Hardy hits a twist of fate, and then we get Jeff Hardy hitting the Swanton Bomb, the Extreme Combination, playing up trumps, and we would have brand new NXT Tag Team Champions crowned. So Hardy Boys now, double champions, TNA World titles, and the NXT Tag Team Championships. So, yeah, it was a monumental moment for the Hardy Boys. The only titles they'd never won in WWE, excluding that of the NXT UK Tag Team Championships, of course. But yeah, the only ones that are actually sort of like still active and available to be won. The Hardy Boys have now won NXT Tag Team Gold. So, a nice little coming of, full circle moment for them. They've now won everything in WWE there is to ever win. And it's very impressive for the Hardy Boys. One of the best tag teams of all time, and they just add to their illustrious career, even at this grand stage of it. So, yeah, good match to kick things off. Really enjoyed it, and we'll see what happens now with the NXT tag team titles. Can NXT get them back quickly? Will it take a while? I guess we'll wait and find out. Coming up next, we would then have a 4 versus 4 traditional Survivor Series style tag team match, and this sees the women of NXT taking on the women of TNA. And we mentioned, so many times, how just unbelievably strong the women's roster is on NXT. So naturally, I think, going into this one, you would expect Team NXT to come up with a victory here. And that was exactly what happened in the end. But it wasn't without its sort of like hiccups and, issues along the way. We got Jordan Grace as the special guest referee for this one. That was announced on X over the weekend. There is a special guest referee for the men's one as well. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But of this particular one, Jordan Grace, yeah, she is the official. And honestly, she did a pretty good job for the most part. A couple of little bits here and there that I picked up on, but I won't sort of like hone in on that too much. But yeah, in terms of the matchup, this was a pretty fun one. It flowed really nicely. There's a whole lot going on. We saw some really nice work from Sol Ruka, Kalani Jordan. Just generally speaking, just everybody had like a really good showing here. But I think they were the two sort of like standouts, I want to say, on these. So you got JC Jane, Sol Ruka, Lola Vice, and Jada Parker taking on Kalani Jordan, The Inspiration, and Mara Sade. So, yeah, there was a whole lot to digest here. But in the end, Team NXT do get the victory, and it is JC Jane and Sol Ruka as the two remaining superstars on Team NXT that would eliminate, the rest of Team TNA. But it had a really nice feel to it. Just genuinely how it just flowed, it was nice. There wasn't anything particularly wrong about it. We had lots of high-flying action, stuff to the outside, a little bit of some within the ring as well. JC not quite seeing the same way as like Lola Vice, for example, not being on the same page. We had Jada Parker be eliminated first by Mara Sade. That was quite interesting there. And just generally just sort of like just moved on up until a point where we do get Sol Ruka and JC Jane, just left with Kalani Jordan for Team TNA. And Sol Ruka hits a Soul Snatcher. So it looks like she's going to pick up the victory here and get the win for Team NXT. And then as she's sort of like near the corner, JC tags in and immediately goes in for the cover and just gets the last laugh, I guess you could say. So, it's just the way it went. JC won that last saying in the contest as the NXT Women's Champion. But the champions showing out here. You know, the last three women left were all singles champions. And then obviously you've got the women's knockouts tag team champions as well with the Inspiration, who were in there just before they got eliminated, before leading up to just Kalani Jordan. So yeah, lots of champions in this one, but it was a very fun matchup. What did you make of our first half of NXT, Nick? The TNA NXT crossover begins. Hardy Boys becoming double tag champs now after picking up those NXT tag team titles, and then that Team TNA versus Team NXT matchup. How did it all work out for you? Did you have fun with this first half?
Yeah, I think I had fun. I will say I don't think either of these went as well and or expected. At least for the expectations I had in my head. But with that being said, I do want to give props to both teams from the tag match, and that being Matt and Jeff for doing this at 51 and 48 respectively. Just still every time they're on my screen, I'm gonna say something about that because I know they have a very limited moveset at this point, especially comparatively speaking to what they once had. But they do a good job, and they very much know how to make it seem like they aren't limited. So with that, props to them, but also props for Dark State, doing their best. And you could tell on that one particular move where Matt was almost going to be dropped, you could tell they were probably nervous in the fact that they wanted to make sure that absolutely nothing happened or not a single hair on the Hardy Boys' head were harmed. So props to both teams for that. As for the decision, to have the Hardy Boys win that one title that had eluded them in WWE that is still available, as you mentioned. I didn't see that happening. Maybe there's a fault in the fact that both titles were on the line. I don't know. Dark had quite a bit of momentum, so I didn't see them losing. So I guess that's a moment. And maybe Dark State doesn't is able to get that title back pretty quickly, maybe. I don't know. But I'm not sure I agree with the Hardy Boys winning here, just at the point that both are in their career. Not to say that WWE hasn't done that before and we won't see it again. But yeah, I think Dark State has a ton of momentum, and I think this does put a bit of a blemish in that momentum. So, like I said, with the match itself, it was fun for what it was. Got to see the greatest hits essentially of the Hardy Boys, but to have Dark State and two of who has been the two most dominant members of Dark State lose the match. I'm not sure I agree with that, but regardless, TNA getting the win here and going up 1-0 on the night, and I guess the Hardy Boys winning that because their appearances are probably numbered. You have to feel like at this point, but a bit of a questionable decision on my end. The next match and the Survivor Series elimination match between TNA and NXT with Jordan Grace. I'm glad they did do the special guest referees because we kind of mentioned and hit on that on last week's episode or recap of NXT, why they weren't involved at all. Felt like a huge miss. I hadn't seen the X announcement, so it was a surprise to me to see on the show, and I was happy to see it. As for the match itself, I think you kind of at least alluded to it, in that this match was far from perfect. There were quite a bit of mishaps, if you will. Seemingly always happens with the women and the big kind of 8 women matches. It seems to always happen at least a lot more than it does in the men for whatever reason. And it obviously doesn't help. You have two different brands here who probably don't have a ton of time to discuss, what they want to do and that sort of thing. So, giving them a bit of a crutch, I guess, even though the men should be in the same scenario. But there were quite a few mishaps in this match. But for what it was, I thought it was fun. Jordan Gray specifically, that moment where all four members of each team are staring each other down. She's kind of debating on which side or what she should do, and ends up saying, you know what, just go for it. I thought that was a great moment. And then obviously the ending with Sol Ruka hitting that Soul Snatcher, and then JC just getting in to get the win, and kind of further maybe some friction between them. It always is a weird dynamic how everyone's very much just pretend like they don't have beef with each other. The team NXT for this one night, but there were definitely sparks of some issues there between NXT. But I think for NXT not to win this match would have been a huge, even worse, more so than the first match. I think Team NXT has to win here. Their team was vastly better in almost every facet of it. You really couldn't make the argument otherwise. So I think getting the win here for them is the right call. Lola got a couple eliminations, so I thought that was good as well. Was kind of shocked to see Jada Parker get beat, but I guess someone has to lose, and Sol and JC, I think, probably the best two of currently, the only two champions. So it does make sense. It was a decent enough match. But like I said, far from perfect, but fun enough.
Yeah, I think you nailed well, I think you hit the nail on the head there pretty well. It yeah, it was a fun matchup, but yeah, I think you do sort of like notice those little things here and there. As far as the Hardys go, I was actually rooting for the Hardys in this one, so I was chuffed a bit to see them get the win. Maybe it's nostalgia coming in, I don't know, but just to see them still rocking it, killing it, I don't know, it just does something for me, and I'm just really, really enjoying it. And yeah, them being double tag team champions now, definitely interested to see how that's going to take place, because we know the title's going to come back eventually, but how will it happen? Who will it happen to? So yeah, definitely big things coming for whoever's going to beat these guys. But yeah, I can't wait. I think it's a really interesting scenario. We got our second half of NXT right up here right now. Let's discuss this one. So first and foremost, we'll begin with the next match, which was for the NXT North American Championship. That sees Ethan Page put his gold on the line up against Mustafa Ali in a match that's been 2 years in the making. Not specifically between these two competitors, but between Mustafa Ali and his North American Championship opportunity. I think, naturally speaking, I think everyone pretty much would have expected Ethan Page to get the win here, but it wasn't without its talking points and his controversial topics here with this one. First and foremost, the matchup was fantastic. It was a brilliant one-on-one match between both men. I thought they just worked together unbelievably well, put on a really compelling contest, and yeah, had a great time watching this one. It was really, really well done. Mustafa Ali showed up and showed out here. Like, he had a great showing, really, from start to finish. And he really pushed Ethan Page to the edge on a number of occasions here. So, yeah, it was a fun contest between both men. It gets to a point in the end where Mustafa's foot, he gets caught in the microphone cable. It's kind of weird how it all happens. But, like, he goes up to the top rope, I don't know if he really noticed the microphone cable on his or around his foot at this point, but when he's up to the top rope, he then does realize and sort of distracted by it. He's trying to loosen it up and to get off his foot. That gives Ethan Page opportunity. He literally just goes over to Mustafa Ali and just shoves him off, shoves him backwards. So he literally, Mustafa Ali falls to ringside, crashes against, I think he might have hit the barricade a little bit as well. By the way, it's very, very close to hitting it if he wasn't. And yeah, it takes a really nasty spill, nasty landing. And Ethan Page just quickly gets him up, pushes him back into the ring, hits a twisted grin, and that's enough to get the victory and remain the NXT North American champion. So I think expected result in the end, but it was a really, really fun and good contest between both men. Like I said, just had a great time watching it, and yeah, it was top-notch stuff. I thought both men just absolutely killed it. So fair play. It was a very compelling matchup, and probably my match of the night, actually, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. It was that much fun. It was that good. And it's good to see Mustafa Ali, getting that opportunity that he did earn a couple of years ago. Obviously, it would have turned out very differently for him if you read the reports. But yeah, I think at least we still do get that happening right now, and it was a very fun one as well. Then we have our main event, and we saw the women's 4 versus 4 earlier in the night. This is the men's 4 versus 4, Team TNA versus Team NXT. And we would have the likes of Mike Santana, Moose, Leon Slater, and Frankie Kazarian representing representing TNA. And then for Team NXT, we would have Ricky Saints, Trick Williams, Javon Evans, and Miles Bourne. Yeah, this one was a good contest. I think it had a lot of things you might expect in it. We had Trick Williams not really being the team player that you know he should have been in this matchup. We'll talk about a little bit more about that later on. We had an early elimination in Miles Bourne getting eliminated pretty quickly, and then that sort of like opened the floodgates later on. Javon Evans was eliminated relatively early as well by Leon Slater ahead of their match coming up next week for coming up later on this week for the title that Leon Slater is putting on the line. We've also got a little bit of a fight back from Ricky Saints because at this point, NXT are down to 2 men, and it gets to a point where Trick Williams leaves. He just completely leaves Ricky Saints in the ring, and he heads off out of there. So essentially, it's 4-on-1, and Ricky tries his best. To be fair to him, he does get 2 eliminations. He eliminates Frankie Kazarian and then Leon Slater. But there's a close call afterwards. I think between Moose and Mike Santana. I think Moose accidentally spears Santana and Ricky goes for a cover, and it's a very, very close call. Think we're going to get another elimination, but actually Mike does kick out. And then a few moments later, it is all wrapped up as Moose and Santana pick up the victory here by eliminating Ricky Saints. So Trick was never eliminated, but obviously he just walked off and wasn't involved, so therefore the match came to an end. So yeah, it was quite a fun one. Team TNA winning this one. Maybe that came across as a surprise. Maybe it didn't. I don't particularly know. But regardless of the fact that, Mike Santana takes a lot of momentum into that TNA World Championship match that he has against Trick Williams coming up very, very soon. So interesting to see how that's going to play out. Will we finally get the dethroning of Trick? I think Mike Santana is in a position where he probably could do that now. But that's a conversation for another day because this match, obviously, very, very different situation. But Team TNA looking very, very strong here and getting that victory, just alludes to how well they're doing at the moment. So, Nick, our second half, how good was that North American Championship match for you? Did you rate it as highly as I did? And what about that 4 versus 4? An improvement on the women's or around sort of the same kind of standard?
Yeah, the North American title match was fantastic. Props to the NXT crowd first of all for entering the asshole chant during Ethan's theme song, along with the ego parts of it. That got a really good laugh out of me. In the words of Sheamus, this was an absolute banger. Even when this match was set up, I knew this had potential, and this one absolutely delivered. Our love for Ethan Page is no secret, but then to add Mustafa Ali to that mix, perfect. That was a great match, and definitely match of the night for me as well. The ending with the headset cord, I thought that was very creative and very well done, to nicely set up that continued curse storyline with Mustafa Ali. And like I said, Mustafa Ali always been extremely underrated. I think he will be back in WWE one day. He is an extremely talented individual, and Ethan's a great performer as well. And so getting those 2 in the ring, I think it was just kind of writing was on the wall. It was always going to be a good match. And I hope that Mustafa gets some more time in WWE because he is truly a joy to watch. And with that storyline kind of continuing, maybe we'll see a rematch down the line. But yeah, this was a ton of fun. Before we get into the last match, there were a couple of backstage segments I wanted to hit on real quick, and that was Matt Cardona apologizing to Ava for interfering in the Briggs match. We kind of hit on that last week. Was why did that happen? Matt Cardona kind of saying he was disappointed he wasn't included for Team TNA, but Ava's not buying any of that. But Briggs storms in afterwards, during actually, and Cardona's able to hide behind the door, and he demands that match with Cardona, which we will see next week. So similar to the Jordan Grace, Joe Hendry stuff, seeing something done with that. So props to NXT for doing something with all of that. And then another backstage segment before the main event, we see Blake Monroe setting her sights on Sol Ruka's North American title, as we see Zarya a bit jealous of the quote-unquote friends she has for that match earlier. So finally something being done with that North American title as well. So I've been complaining about that. So again, another props to NXT for making sure nothing goes unnoticed, if you will. getting into the main event, the Survivor Series matches with NXT and TNA, with Joe Hendry as that guest referee. Yeah, I thought this was good. I was shocked to see Miles Bourne get eliminated, but again, someone has to, I suppose. But his was pretty sudden. I felt like Leon Slater eliminating Javon obviously sets up for Bound for Glory in that X Division Championship. Very much looking forward to that match, and I think we do have plans to watch and react to that one. So looking like a pretty intriguing card. Then Saints certainly making his presence felt, getting some pretty good wins here. I think it made him look super strong, and so props to that. And then, of course, Trick Williams taking his ball and going home, if you will, kind of setting up for their match at Bound for Glory as well, with Santana. I think that will be a great one as well. So, yeah, in terms of this match, I thought it was fun. Definitely better than the women's match. I will say that. Tons of good moments there. Now the women's match was, I think, more fun. Um, but I think this match was a lot cleaner and a lot better wrestling match. So for whatever that's worth, yeah. And then NXT getting the loss here to TNA, I think that was the right call. I think for TNA to go 1-3 in this event would have been a bad look, and for them to go 2-2, with Trick leaving doesn't really make TNA look weak or NXT look weak. Obviously, Ricky Saints looking good. So you did the best with what you could, and then obviously ending the evening on a 2-2 kind of basis. And then we see at the end of the night, we see Ava and Santino kind of shake hands and further appreciate their storyline or their partnership, and continuing that storyline that maybe everyone's in good hopes now to think that everyone's going to get along. And Ava kind of put towards a open challenge for TNA Knockouts division if they wanted to come over and potentially challenge for a number one contender spot. So, I think everyone's on the same page now. In terms of overall, yeah, I think at least for me, I think outside of the North American title match, I think this one kind of failed to live up to the expectations I had put out for it. From the get go, I said this probably could have been and should have been a PLE. I think you give everyone a lot more time and even get a few more matches of the TNA versus NXT. I think you could have done a lot more story with that. But for what it was, got tons of fun, kind of crossover things that we well, I say that even too. Like we see these matches. This isn't in the grand scheme of things. It's not super special, but we do see these matchups from time to time. Just for it being an actual show of only the cross brand, I think was an interesting concept. I think they just could have done a lot more with it. So, but with that, I thought this was a fun enough bit, but. In terms of storyline, not tons done there, but some decent matches there. I give this one a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think if this one really was a PLE, I think it would have probably had a lot more to it. Like I say, you can get more people involved. You can sort of like, add to what we already had on this show. And then, yeah, you can just sort of like raise the stakes and, raise the intensity a little bit further up. Possibly even adding Matt Cardona and Briggs maybe as well in the mix, possibly. But yeah, I think just generally speaking, it was a really good show, and it did a lot of good. It was nice to see sort of like competitive action between two brands who are both killing it at the moment, doing very very well for themselves. And yeah, it was just nice, a nice little relief here from like regular TV, something a little bit different. But it wasn't like a bad different. It was something good, sort of like have like something mixing things up a little bit. So. Yeah, we'll go back to regular TV afterwards for NXT. Obviously, TNA got Bound for Glory coming up very, very soon, so that's going to obviously be a very big event for them. So yeah, just generally just a nice little relief in between. I thought it was pretty good. I gave it an 8 out of 10. Just generally speaking, just had a lot of fun watching it, and yeah, it was nice to see those traditional Survivor Series tag team matches coming back again. Obviously, War Games being the main thing now, but if we can get these things little bits here and there, that never a bad thing. Always do enjoy them. But for this episode, that is everything that we need to discuss here at The Push. So thank you to everybody for tuning in and listening to this one. If you liked what you heard here, then please consider hitting a like on the video and subscribing to our channel to keep up with future content coming up very, very soon. We've got loads and loads of stuff coming out. It's a very busy period for us here at The Push. It always seems to be at the moment, which is just great, getting all that content, and we're having a great time doing so as well. Those of you that have opinions on this episode of NXT, let us know what you think in the comments. We'd love to hear what you're thinking, whether it's good, bad, indifferent. yeah, well, there's a lot of talking points. So whatever you got on your mind, let us know what they are. But for now, everyone, this has been The Push with Nick and KP, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you for tuning on in, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye for now.